Hi people, Moin Ravenberg here again. I thought about an interesting subject for a video that I'm going to cover. As you can tell from the header, this video is specifically going to be about a man named Albert Fish. Now, long story short, Albert Fish was a notorious serial killer. Hold on, if you just Google it, Albert Fish. Okay, you'll immediately come about this. Albert Fish, American serial killer. He was a child rapist, molester, etc., and a cannibal who committed a minimum of 3 child murders, etc., etc. He was also known as the Boogeyman, as well as a couple of other names that he carried. Yeah. So in any case, for the purposes of this video, okay, I'm going to display astrologically how accurate it is in terms of a planetary constellation that someone is born under. Lately, I've been doing a lot of astrological videos, so yeah, I'll just keep it going. In any case, I did my own personal research, and although I'm not 100% absolutely certain, I am 99% sure, and that is more than enough, that Albert Fish was born around 9:24 p.m. Now, he was born on May the 19th, 1870. You can tell it here in the top. You can tell from the description here in the top left corner. The NS, you can ignore that. It was a Thursday. NS simply stands for New Style. Back in the day, they had either the old style calendar system, or the new style. They switched at some point in history to new style. So OS simply stands for old style and NS new style. 9:24 p.m. and he was born in Washington D.C. Those are the geographical coordinates of Washington D.C. and the rest is just miscellaneous astrological aspects. Now, right off the bat, you don't have to read the chart in detail to be able to tell that, hey, there's trouble brewing here. For starters, Saturn was afflicted in Sagittarius in the 12th house when he was born, substantially afflicted. This indicates that Albert, it's conjunct the ascendant. Albert was born at nighttime. It so yeah, the sun is a distance away from from morning time essentially. Okay, the sun has already gone past sunset, so yeah, it's nighttime. Okay, if you go clockwise now. In any case, Saturn is conjunct the ascendant, which indicates that Albert, in conjunction with all the other aspects, Saturn is also heavily aspected here. It indicates that Albert was institutionalized from an early age. He was essentially confined and or committed to 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 any kind of institution that a child can be admitted into. Think of a foster home, okay, in case something was wrong with his parents. Think of a boarding school. Think of military schools, a military camp for juveniles, anything along those lines. That happened to an early age. That's what Saturn says. Right off the bat, you don't even have to go over everything in detail. Just superficial observation already gives that away. I'm only going to focus specifically on the crimes he committed and the horrific aspect of his personality. We're going to skip over the moon. The moon doesn't really say anything mentioned worthy regarding that. Venus in Aries, definitely not good. Venus is at its weakest in Aries, and here you can also see the trouble brewing. Venus and Aries in the third house indicates that there were troubles in daily life. There was a lot of up and down traveling. The moon does indicate that as well, that he traveled a lot, especially in the early stages of his life. Short distance travel, not so much long distance, so essentially moving from place to place. A lot of displacement in terms of on a domestic level, just overall in life, as opposed to staying in one place in a stable household and whatnot. In any case, Venus further elaborates on that. Venus even elaborates on the fact that he either bullied or he was bullied as a child in day-to-day life, and that day-to-day life was simply filled with misfortunes and with aggression either towards him or coming from him. Generally speaking, the latter, since Venus is afflicted. Sorry, I mean the former, since Venus is afflicted. So he found himself in a position of a victim, essentially. Let's just put it that way. So yeah, he most likely was bullied and he was mistreated severely. And you'll see, it's coming. Now, we move on to the other placements. Neptune is in Aries, also definitely not functioning well in Aries. It simply stands for misguided spiritual mentality, essentially. And you've also got the Black Moon here, Lilith. And all of these are in the fourth house, representing his domestic activity. That was the case for the most part in his life. Um, Now, I already said earlier that Saturn is an aspect to all of these, okay? If you can check it well, Saturn is positively, if you pay attention, all of these blue lines or trines, they're positively aspected to this entire cluster. So Neptune, the pot of fortune, and Lilith, the black moon. In a man's chart in general, Lilith gives away how, what kind of issues a man has with women in his life and in what way, essentially. Like I said, it's like Neptune, like I said earlier, like Neptune, Lilith is also in Aries, and it also gives away that the issues he had were on a domestic level with women early on in life. That's why it's connected. All of it is connected. All of them are aspected to one another. Okay, and these women were specifically really brutal towards him. That's what Aries stands for. Aries stands for aggression. These women were aggressive towards him. They specifically, since it's conjunct with Neptune, they specifically dished out verbal mistreatment. Okay, they humiliated and degraded him essentially, and and generally speaking, it was accompanied by physical violence as well. You name it. Again, think back to what I said about Saturn, where he was institutionalized in some kind of establishment. So most likely he was in some kind of boarding school where they mistreated him and where they really just treated him like absolute crap, and he was reprimanded substantially. And again, think of, for example, a teacher in a boarding school or similar that hits students with a ruler, that humiliates them and tells them you're dumb, you're stupid, you will never amount to anything. It just goes on and on. I can tell why your parents sent you to here. You were too poor to be able to afford it. You don't have a family. Blah blah blah. It just goes on. It's about the mental humiliation. Okay, it's about mental violence, psychological trauma inflicted upon in children in this case, or juveniles, rather than the physical. And yeah, that's why they're all conjunct one another. They're all next to one another. It forms one nice cluster here. And that's also why Neptune is here. It simply stands for the fact that it broke Albert Fish's mind, so to speak, to the point where he suffered from mental illness, okay, specifically nervous disorders, hallucinations, you name it, okay. And it also goes together with Venus here. Venus is also aspected Neptune, which further only specifically elaborates, like I said, regarding Venus, the mistreatment he suffered on a day-to-day basis early in life, also as well as overall in general. Now, now we enter the serial killer aspect of his personality. Mars is here. Mars and Venus are afflicted. Both are in Taurus. And I'm sorry, Mars and Pluto are at their weakest, honestly, in Taurus. Mars rules Aries and Scorpio, and Mars is in Taurus. Taurus opposes Scorpio, and yeah, Mars is weak in Taurus. The same can be said of Pluto, since Pluto is the modern ruler of Scorpio. Long story short, both are weak in Taurus. Simply put, it simply stands for someone that is stupid, essentially, honestly, slow-witted. Albert Fish wasn't exactly the most well-developed of people. He didn't have a sharp mind or a quick wit about him or anything like that. Generally speaking, he was a slow-witted kind of individual. You know, the kind of person that has a like what I like to call a cow's mentality. Okay, someone that essentially likes to how should I put it? Someone that needs like where the average person would need a second to think about something, they need a minute or 2 minutes to think about something. These kind of people, it's just stems of poor development. And now Mars conjunct Pluto in general stands for criminal behavior, especially if both are afflicted. So here it obviously stands for a substantial amount of criminal behavior. Mars is in the fourth house, which stands for life in a on a domestic scene, which simply stands for the fact that he, generally speaking, was a slow-witted kind of individual, and he also caused trouble on occasion inside the household. And now we move on to the fifth house, which specifically deals with romance, okay, and love overall. Pluto being afflicted here simply stands for the fact that there is a great interest in children, which the Sun further elaborates on because the Sun is also here. The Sun rules this house, keep in mind. This is the house that Leo rules over. And the Sun alone being here already says that he had a substantial fondness for children. Pluto further elaborates on that, and It also, since it's afflicted, Pluto, the sun is neutral in Taurus, but since Pluto is afflicted there, it also stands for mistreatment of children, unfortunately. It stands for criminal mistreatment of children. Last but not least, Jupiter also elaborates on that. Jupiter is afflicted in Gemini. Jupiter rules Sagittarius and Pisces. So the zodiac sign that opposes Sagittarius is Gemini, standing for the fact, and it's in the fifth house, which stands for the fact that he has a tremendous interest in children and a tremendous love of children, and he he there is a lot of communication with them on a day-to-day basis when interacting with them. But again, it further elaborates on the mistreatment because Jupiter is afflicted. It stands for a severe mistreatment of children. For the rest, Mercury is also non-applicable, similar to the Moon. Doesn't really say anything mention-worthy. And last but not least, we come to Uranus. Uranus is strong in Cancer, but Uranus is also negatively aspected to this entire cluster, essentially. Everything from Venus to the Pot of Fortune. So Venus, Neptune, and the Pot of Fortune. Not to mention the midheaven itself, which deals with career and whatnot. Uranus here in the seventh house, the house that deals with relationships and bonding with people, such as marriage and friendships and whatnot, simply stands for the fact that he had erratic relationships that could be profound, as in really deep, and then relationships that were the exact opposite, and a substantial going back and forth. That's why Uranus is strong. So Albert Fish was the kind of guy that essentially made friends, essentially, and these friends were nothing more than acquaintances to him, and it just went up and down and vice versa. It just goes on and on and on, okay? Again, people that display severe erratic behavior or severe bipolarness towards their relationships with others, essentially, people that they develop bonds with. Also stands for an unstable marriage life, or an unstable marriage if he got married, or if he had relationships with women, you name it, and simply them being of an unstable nature. And yeah, that's essentially it. I'm not going to say anything. You can check the link in the description below for the Wikipedia article on Albert Fish, and also a link to a video that you'll find interesting. Or you can wait until the end screen of this video for the video on Albert Fish. And yeah, you'll see for yourself what time it is. In any case, that's all, people. Bye-bye.